Dominic Webb moved silently through his lakeside home, the hardwood floors cool beneath his bare feet. At 43, Dom's body still carried the disciplined strength from his years in military intelligence, though he transitioned to the private sector 8 years ago. His security consulting firm, Obsidian Solutions, operated in shadows deeper than most government agencies dare venture. Dom paused at the bedroom doorway, watching his wife of 11 years, Laurel, sleep peacefully. The moonlight through the windows cast silver highlights across her auburn hair. A familiar ache tightened his chest. He knew what was happening, had known for months, but hadn't confronted it yet. In his line of work, information was power, and he needed the complete picture before making his move. Another late night? Laurel murmured without opening her eyes. Prague's situation. All handled now. The lie came easily. He'd actually been setting up surveillance equipment in their lake house, where Laurel had been meeting her lover for the past 3 months. Coming to bed? Soon. In his study, Dom unlocked a hidden panel beneath his desk and removed a small flash drive. The contents would devastate most men. Videos of Laurel with Troy Merrick, the handsome district attorney who befriended them both at a charity gala last year. Dom had trusted Troy, even confided in him during their regular tennis matches. The betrayal stung worse than the infidelity. Dom inserted the drive into his computer and reviewed the latest footage. Something had changed in their dynamic. Previously passionate encounters had become furtive strategy sessions. They were planning something against him. His phone buzzed with a message from Bianca, his most trusted operative at Obsidian. Found the connection. Merrick is tied to the Bishop Syndicate. They're using his position to protect their West Coast operations. Your wife may be an unwitting pawn or complicit. Need more time to determine which. Dom's jaw tightened. The Bishop Syndicate, a sophisticated crime organization he'd been quietly investigating for the Department of Justice as a private contractor. The same organization responsible for the deaths of 3 of his former team members. This wasn't just an affair. It was potentially an intelligence operation against him. A text message appeared on the burner phone he used for his most sensitive government contracts. Package arriving tomorrow. Extraction plan green. V was Vincent Calloway, Deputy Director of the DOJ's Special Task Force and Dom's handler. The extraction plan meant his deep cover work on the Bishop case was nearing completion. The pieces fell into place with terrifying clarity. Troy wasn't just sleeping with Dom's wife. He was using her to get close to Dom, to discover what he knew about the syndicate. Laurel's footsteps padded down the hallway, stopping outside his study. Dom quickly switched screens to innocuous financial reports. "Can't sleep?" she asked, wrapping her arms around his shoulders from behind. The subtle scent of her perfume, one he'd once found intoxicating, now nauseated him. "Just finishing up some work." He patted her hand, maintaining the facade. "Go back to bed. I'll join you soon." As she left, Dom wondered how much she knew. Was she an innocent pawn in Troy's game, or a willing participant in his destruction? 3 days later, Dom returned from a legitimate business trip to find his home office ransacked. His secure safe was untouched. They wouldn't know about that one, but his decoy safe had been expertly cracked. The planted documents inside, falsified evidence of money laundering through his company, were gone. He called his security team immediately. Protocol Blackwater. Now, within an hour, his most sensitive operations were locked down, backup servers secured, and his team alerted to potential compromise. Then he waited, watching Laurel through the home's security system as she made frantic calls from the garden, clearly agitated. That evening, she prepared his favorite meal, opened his preferred whiskey, and was uncharacteristically attentive. The act might have fooled another man. "I've been thinking about that vacation you mentioned," she said, refilling his glass. "Bali sounds perfect right now. A convenient exit strategy for her." Dom smiled and took a sip, noting how she watched him drink. The whiskey tasted off, slightly bitter. He discreetly emptied most of it into a nearby plant when she turned away. "Maybe next month," he replied, feigning slight drowsiness. "This Prague contract has me swamped." Later, he pretended to fall into a heavy sleep while Laurel made a hushed phone call from the bathroom. "It's done," she whispered. We'll have about 8 hours before it wears off. Enough time to finish everything and be gone. Dom listened as she detailed how she drugged him, how they would transfer the remainder of his accessible funds overnight, and how Troy's evidence would ensure Dom was arrested for laundering money for international arms dealers. When she finally fell asleep, Dom slipped out of bed and prepared for what would come next. By morning, he had replaced the drugged whiskey, secured his actual operational evidence against the Bishop Syndicate, and contacted Vincent with an update on the situation. "Let it play out," Vincent advised. "We need to know how deep this goes." 2 days later, as Dom worked in his study, the front door burst open. Four police officers stormed in, weapons drawn. "Dominic Webb, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit money laundering and aiding a criminal enterprise," announced the lead officer. Dom allowed himself to be handcuffed without resistance, locking eyes with Laurel, who stood in the doorway with tears streaming down her face. Troy appeared behind her, hand on her shoulder in a protective gesture. "He's dangerous," she cried to the officers, performance worthy of an award. "I found evidence of what he's been doing. I had to report it. I was afraid for my life when I realized what he was involved in." As they led him away, Dom maintained absolute calm, noting every officer's name tag, every procedural misstep in their search. The performance had begun. At the police station, Dom sat silently in the interrogation room, declining to answer questions without his attorney present. The detective, a gruff veteran named Pullman, slapped a folder of evidence on the table. "Your wife gave us everything, Webb. Financial transfers to known arms dealers, encrypted communications, offshore accounts. Your fancy security business was just a front." Dom studied the documents. Expertly forged financial statements showing his company laundering money for the Bishop Syndicate. The very organization he was working to bring down had flipped the script, making him appear to be their financial ally. "I'd like to make my phone call now," Dom replied calmly. In a private room, Dom made a single call. 20 minutes later, the station's atmosphere changed dramatically. Officers whispered to each other, glancing nervously toward the interrogation room. The door swung open, and Police Chief Raymond Voss himself walked in, followed by a tall woman in a crisp FBI jacket. Dom recognized her as Special Agent Kelly Donovan, the Bureau's liaison to his Bishop investigation. "Release him. Now," Chief Voss ordered, his face flushed with anger. The detective stammered in confusion as Agent Donovan collected the falsified evidence folder. "But sir, his wife—" "Uncuff him, Detective," Voss interrupted. As the cuffs came off, Dom rubbed his wrists and stood. Chief Voss led him to his office where Laurel waited, her face ashen. Troy sat beside her, maintaining his confident attorney demeanor despite the sweat beading on his forehead. "Ma'am," Chief Voss said, staring at Laurel, "you just made a grave mistake. Who the hell did you think you were messing with?" Dom remained silent, studying his wife's face as the realization dawned that her plan had catastrophically backfired. "Dominic, I can explain," she began. "Mrs. Webb," Agent Donovan interrupted, "Mr. Merrick, you're both persons of interest in an ongoing federal investigation. I suggest you both secure legal representation immediately." Troy's composure cracked. "This is absurd. I'm the district attorney." "Former district attorney," corrected a new voice. Vincent Calloway entered, flanked by 2 federal marshals. "As of 1 hour ago, the governor suspended you pending investigation." After they departed, Dom declined protective custody. "They need to believe they still have a chance," he explained to Vincent. "If they're desperate enough, they'll lead us straight to the Bishop leadership." That night, Dom returned to an empty home. Laurel had cleared out her essentials, leaving behind a hastily written note claiming she feared for her safety after learning of his criminal connections. The irony wasn't lost on him. Bianca arrived with updates. Merrick accessed sealed federal files on the Bishop case 3 months ago. He's definitely their legal fixer. We've tracked his communications with Bishop's suspected second-in-command, Philip Rossi. And Laurel? Initially unaware, based on our surveillance. She genuinely believed she was having an affair with an upstanding district attorney. When Merrick realized who you were and who you worked for, he manipulated her. Convinced her you were secretly working for criminal organizations. The betrayal cut deeper. Not just an affair, but Laurel had actually believed him capable of the very crimes he fought against. Over the next 2 weeks, Dom allowed Troy and Laurel to believe they were evading justice. He leaked information suggesting the case against them was weakening due to procedural errors. Meanwhile, his team tracked their every move. Troy contacted Philip Rossi, seeking protection and resources to disappear. Laurel, increasingly desperate, attempted to access Dom's hidden accounts, unaware that every keystroke was being recorded. Dom faced his own challenges. The Bishop Syndicate, realizing their plot had failed, launched a coordinated attack against his company. 3 of his operatives were ambushed in Marseille. A cyber attack targeted Obsidian servers. A car bomb nearly killed Dom himself, leaving him with shrapnel wounds and a fractured collarbone. During his recovery, Dom received an unexpected visitor, Laurel's younger sister, Naomi. She called me, Naomi explained, sitting beside his hospital bed. She's terrified, Dom. Says you're not who she thought you were, that you're hunting her. And what do you think? Dom asked. Naomi studied him. I think my sister made the biggest mistake of her life, and is now trying to justify it by making you the villain. She handed him a small USB drive. Laurel asked me to retrieve this from her safety deposit box. I looked at what's on it. It's disturbing. The drive contained videos of Laurel meeting with Philip Rossi twice before her affair with Troy even began. Documents showing transfers from a Bishop-controlled shell company to an account in her name. And most damning, photos of Laurel at the funeral of one of Dom's former team members killed by the syndicate. She was part of this from the beginning, Dom realized aloud. The ultimate betrayal. She had targeted him specifically because of his work against the Bishop Syndicate. Naomi wiped away tears. I'm sorry, Dom. I had no idea who she'd become. As Dom recovered, he recalibrated his approach. This wasn't just about gathering evidence anymore. The woman he had loved had been complicit in the deaths of his friends. The syndicate had planted her in his life years before he even began investigating them. He contacted Vincent. I need total operational freedom. The DOJ can't sanction what you're planning, Dom. Then consider me on indefinite leave. Dom activated resources even Vincent didn't know about. Former operators who owed him their lives. Government officials with secrets he'd kept. Assets in countries without extradition treaties. He sold his lake house, liquidated public investments, and seemingly retreated from the investigation. To Laurel and Troy, it would appear he was licking his wounds, giving them a false sense of security. In reality, he was setting the board for the final game. 3 months after his arrest, Dom sat in a rented cabin in northern Montana, monitoring multiple feeds on his laptop. Troy and Laurel had settled into a false sense of security in a luxury condo in Vancouver, believing the case against them had stalled. They'd tapped into some of Laurel's hidden funds, accounts Dom had actually created for exactly this purpose, making them traceable only when he wanted them found. They're transferring the money today, reported Bianca over the secure line. $5 million to the account in the Caymans, just as you predicted. Dom nodded, though she couldn't see him. And Rossi, confirmed. He's meeting them tonight at the harbor property. Bishop himself might even make an appearance. After years of investigation, no one had ever gotten close enough to identify the actual leader of the syndicate. The organization structure was deliberately compartmentalized, with most members knowing only their immediate superiors. All teams in position? Dom asked. Ready on your signal. Vincent's task force is standing by too, though unofficially. Dom closed the laptop and checked his watch. Time to end this. That evening, Troy and Laurel arrived at an isolated warehouse on Vancouver's harbor. Security cameras captured their nervous expressions as they were escorted inside by Rossi's men. Inside, Philip Rossi waited with 5 syndicate lieutenants. The warehouse had been converted into a temporary command center, with multiple computer stations and armed guards. The money transferred successfully, Troy announced. Now we need new identities, as agreed. Rossi nodded. Bishop is pleased with your work. Infiltrating Webb's life was a long game, but worth it. Laurel stepped forward. I held up my end for years. I deserve more than just protection now. Of course, said a new voice from the shadows. A tall figure emerged, a man in his 60s with steel-gray hair and aristocratic features. You've earned your place in our organization, my dear. The elusive Bishop himself had indeed appeared. Dom, watching through the hacked security feed from a vehicle outside, finally saw the face of the man responsible for so much death. Inside the warehouse, Bishop continued. The obsidian problem is nearly solved. Webb is isolated, discredited, and most importantly, devastated by your betrayal. People make mistakes when they're emotional. Troy frowned. I'm not comfortable with killing him. That wasn't part of our agreement. Bishop laughed. Your comfort isn't my concern, Merrick. You're compromised as a district attorney now. Your only value is in helping us tie up this loose end. Suddenly, the warehouse lights cut out. Emergency generators kicked in seconds later, bathing everything in dim red light. The security screens went dark. What's happening? Laurel demanded. Perimeter breach, reported one of Rossi's men, checking his communications device. All external guards are down. Bishop's expression hardened. Webb. The warehouse doors sealed automatically as a fine mist began spraying from the ventilation system. Guards reached for their weapons, but became disoriented, stumbling and collapsing within seconds. Rossi, Troy, and Laurel managed to retreat to Bishop's private office in the back of the warehouse, sealed off from the main area. Bishop calmly activated a hidden panel, revealing an escape tunnel. This is why I always have contingencies, he said, entering a code to open the tunnel door. But when it slid open, Dom Webb stood on the other side, weapon raised. Hello, Bishop, Dom said calmly. Or should I call you by your real name? Former CIA Deputy Director Walter Kingston. Bishop's composed facade cracked slightly. Webb, I'm impressed. The knockout gas affects only the main warehouse, Dom explained, stepping into the office as they backed away. Your people out there will live, though they'll wake up in federal custody. Whatever they've offered you to bring me in, I can triple it, Bishop replied. Dom shook his head. This was never about money. Dom, please, Laurel begged, tears streaming down her face. I can explain everything. They threatened my family. I had no choice. Save it, Dom replied coldly. I found your mission brief from 8 years ago. Bishop recruited you specifically to target me, long before I was even investigating him. You weren't coerced. You were a willing operative. He turned to Troy. And you, my friend, my confidant, was anything real? Troy swallowed hard. Business is business, Dom. Nothing personal. That's where you're wrong, Dom replied. You made it personal when you targeted my team members. Outside, helicopters roared overhead as federal agents surrounded the building. You're working with the feds? Rossi asked incredulously. After they suspended you? I'm not working with anyone, Dom answered. The evidence against all of you will be found by Agent Donovan's team when they breach this building in about 5 minutes. I'm just here for something else. From his jacket, Dom removed a small device and pressed a button. A hidden panel in Bishop's office slid open, revealing a safe. Your insurance policy, Dom said. The blackmail material you've collected on government officials for decades. The real source of your power. Bishop lunged for the safe, but Dom intercepted him, slamming him against the wall. That's federal property. Bishop snarled. No, Dom replied. As of 2 hours ago, it's evidence in an international terrorism investigation, authorized by executive order. He removed a hard drive from the safe and pocketed it. Laurel made a desperate move, reaching for a hidden weapon in her purse. Dom didn't even flinch as she raised it. Do you really think I let you have a functional weapon anywhere near me? He asked calmly. She pulled the trigger. The gun clicked emptily. I replaced the firing pin 3 days ago when you were meeting with your Bishop contact at the Fairmont Hotel. Laurel's face crumpled in defeat. Dom walked to the office door. Federal agents will be here in 2 minutes. Bishop, you're facing treason charges. Rossi, international terrorism. Troy, conspiracy and corruption. And Laurel, he paused. Looking at the woman he had once loved, you'll be charged as an accessory to the murders of 3 federal contractors. My friends, you're just going to leave us to rot in prison? Troy asked desperately. Dom turned back one final time. Consider yourselves lucky. What I wanted to do to you would have been much worse. He walked out as the sound of federal agents breaching the main warehouse doors echoed through the building. 1 month later, Dom stood on the deck of his new house on the Oregon coast, watching the sunset with Bianca and Vincent. Bishop's network is completely dismantled, Vincent reported. 17 high-ranking members in custody, financial assets seized, and operations in 12 countries shut down. The president sends his personal thanks. And the blackmail material? Dom asked. Handled with appropriate discretion. Several officials have quietly resigned. Others are cooperating extensively to avoid prosecution. Bianca handed Dom a glass of whiskey. Naomi called. Laurel's taking a plea deal. 25 years minimum. Dom nodded silently. You could have killed them all in that warehouse, Vincent observed. Nobody would have questioned it given the circumstances. Death would have been too easy, Dom replied. This way, they have decades to reflect on their mistakes. Will you ever forgive her? Bianca asked quietly. Dom watched the last sliver of sun disappear below the horizon, his expression hardening. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. Some debts can only be paid in full. He raised his glass to the darkening sky, a toast to absent friends finally avenged, and to enemies who would spend the rest of their lives regretting the day they decided to cross Dominic Webb. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.